Whenever storytellers perform for an audience that is not familiar with storytelling, and I'm speaking presumptively perhaps for my friends here this evening, but one question we're asked quite often is, well, where do you get all your stories? For me, I hear stories told by my human companions and pass them back along. Sometimes a tale will catch my fancy and I'll want to retell it. I'm always on the lookout for new and different stories. But this tale was a short story that I came across, written by a nice gentleman named Charles E. Fitch. It was a contemporary of Rod Serling and Richard Matheson back in the 60s in California, writing tales of dark fantasy and horror, not as well known as they. And I contacted him to ask if it was quite a trial tracking him down. But I did contact him to ask permission to retell his story. And he was very gracious. He said, "Certainly, Carpathian, I'd be happy to have you tell my story. One thing, please. Would you mind telling it to me? I don't quite remember that story." Now that happens more often than you can imagine. People who write for a living something they've written years ago will completely forget it. And I told him the story, and he said, "Oh yes, I sort of remember that. You may certainly tell that story." And I'm very happy that he gave me that permission, because it seems to be a favorite of many when I go out and tell my tale. So if you enjoy this story, don't thank me. Thank Mr. Charles E. Fitch. A man was sitting in a tavern in a large city, the end of a work week, enjoying the quiet, enjoying his own thoughts, enjoying the end of the week and the weekend ahead, sitting there in the darkness, nursing his drink, thinking nothing in particular. And as he sat there at the bar, he had a strange sensation, a strange feeling, and when he looked down at the bar top, there was a very unusual sight. There on the bar top was a little man 2 inches tall, all dressed in green with bright red hair. At first the man thought he was seeing things, that he'd had one drink too many. He closed his eyes, he shook his head, he looked. No, there it still was, little man 2 inches tall, all in green with a shock of red hair. The man didn't know what to think, and then he had an idea. And he looked down at the little man, and in a quiet voice, in a very polite voice, he said, "Excuse me, but are you a leprechaun?" And the creature said, "I am a leprechaun. But I'm even more than a leprechaun, me good sir. You happen to be looking at the world's one and only leprechaun vampire." A leprechaun vampire? The man had never heard of such a thing. A leprechaun vampire? You see, many years ago, an evil witch cursed me with the vampire curse. So now, in addition to having me leprechaun powers of granting wishes and having a pot of gold, I have the powers of the vampire. And I drink blood to stay alive. And I can turn into a little bat, and I must be asleep in my little 2-inch tall coffin before the sun comes up in the morning. And this is why I've come to see you, sir. I have a wee proposition for you. For just a taste of your blood, I'll grant you 3 wishes, anything you want. Well, at the sound of drinking blood, the man became very frightened. "You want some of my blood?" The creature said, "Sir, I'm 2 inches tall. How much could I drink? You can even prick yourself with a pin, and I won't come near you, I promise. But for just a wee taste of your blood, I'll grant you 3 wishes, anything in my power. And not to boast, sir, but my power is quite considerable. Do we have a bargain, sir?" Well, the man gave that some thought. 3 wishes, anything he wanted. He could wish for power, or fame, or money, large house, fast cars, beautiful women, anything. It sounded like a very good bargain. He thought he might. Yes, he would accept that bargain. And he was just about to accept the bargain when the bartender walked over to the man, looked at the man, smiled, looked down at the bar top, saw the leprechaun vampire there. The bartender turned around, picked up a toothpick, and he stabbed the leprechaun vampire right through the heart with the toothpick. Well, the toothpick acted like a wooden stake, and it killed the leprechaun vampire instantly. He collapsed into a little tiny 2-inch pile of dust on the bar top. The man was horrified. He said, "Why did you do that? He was going to grant me 3 wishes, anything I wanted, just for a taste of my blood. Why did you stab him with the toothpick?" And the bartender looked at the man, looked down at the pile of dust on the bar top. He shrugged and he said, "I thought it was an olive."